Hello and welcome to the DSR Daily for Tuesday, June 17th. I'm your host for today, Riley Fessler, joined by Minna Stein. How are you, Minna?
I'm well, thanks. How are you?
I'm okay. Some interesting news stories today.
For sure.
Not really anything positive, so might as well just get right into it and rip the Band-Aid off now.
Smart.
As Israel and Iran continue a devastating air war, U.S. President Donald Trump expressed interest in ending the nuclear standoff with Iran and suggested sending senior officials to negotiate. Israel claims to have decimated Iran's top military leadership and nuclear scientists, while Iran has launched hundreds of missiles and drones in retaliation, killing dozens. The conflict has led to mounting regional instability, oil market disruptions, and increased electronic interference around the Strait of Hormuz. Despite the violence, Trump insists a diplomatic resolution remains possible if Iran accepts strict nuclear limits, while Iran demands an end to Israeli aggression before any talks can proceed. Trump might be interested in that. Doesn't seem like Israel is interested in that. I saw an article, I believe, over the weekend or yesterday. I don't even remember at this point, suggesting that Israel had asked essentially if they could assassinate the Ayatollah, and the Trump administration said, we would prefer if you didn't. So it doesn't, if that article that I saw was true and accurate, it's just kind of additional evidence that Israel is not really interested in a peaceful resolution to this conflict, as they don't seem to be interested in peaceful resolution to any conflict, based on everything they do, which is constant military aggression. So don't know if Trump's going to get his wish on that, but I mean, it's hard to make any kind of prediction around this conflict. So we'll have to just wait and see.
Well, speaking of which, President Donald Trump left the G7 summit in Canada early due to escalating tensions in the Middle East, particularly involving Iran, and chose not to endorse a joint statement on de-escalation. His support for Russia and refusal to back tougher sanctions on Moscow created further divisions among G7 leaders, casting doubt on upcoming talks with Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky. Meanwhile, Trump finalized a trade deal with the UK and expressed interest in new economic agreements with Canada, though disagreements over tariffs remain. Yes, he was quoted, I saw this morning, as saying, he's a tariff guy. He's always been a tariff guy. He will remain a tariff guy. So I guess that is what he's decided his aesthetic for this presidency is going to be. He also said that his administration, sorry, not Trump himself, said that he wasn't leaving the G7 summit early just because of escalating tensions in the Middle East. There were other things as well, but they did not specify what exactly those things were.
It's a weird clarification from them.
Yeah, exactly.
I guess maybe just to express dissatisfaction with the talks. But I mean, this is par for the course with this administration. This isn't that surprising. Poking our allies in the eye while embracing either unstable allies in the case of Israel or non-allies in the case of Russia. So,
yeah,
disappointing, but not surprising.
Well said.
Well, our one semi-positive story for today, and I must reiterate that it is only one, so spoiler alert for the upcoming stories. Federal judge ruled that the Trump administration acted illegally and possibly discriminatorily in canceling hundreds of NIH research grants related to diversity, equity, inclusion, and gender identity. Judge William Young condemned the administration's actions as arbitrary and capricious, suggesting racial and anti-LGBTQ bias motivated the cuts and ordered funding to be restored for the affected projects. The canceled grants covered a wide range of topics, including health disparities and treatments for marginalized populations. While the ruling is an interim step and may be appealed, it marks a significant legal setback for the administration's broader effort to dismantle DEI-related initiatives in science and healthcare. The thing I thought was surprising about this story, I mean, outside of the appeal or outside of the ruling, which there have been many against the Trump administration, is that the judge is a Republican nominee. Guess which president, Minna?
Trump.
No, Ronald
Bush?
Reagan.
Oh, whoa. Okay.
Which I had to double check because that seems like an awfully long time ago. But I do think it's emblematic of how this administration has kind of gone even further and alienated the traditional conservatism that the party has embraced in the past. The fact that it's a Ronald Reagan appointee, Republican Jesus, is kind of surprising. But it just shows that, I don't really know who this administration is for anymore. But it's not really surprising. We kind of already knew that. I just think this is another interesting case where the base or traditional base is souring on Trump, and he kind of has to rely on his new base, which is the cult of personality around himself.
Mm-hmm. Well, I don't think the administration is for anyone, which leads us to our next story. The U.S. Department of Homeland Security reversed recent guidance that paused immigration raids at farms, hotels, and restaurants, instructing agents to resume enforcement at these sites. The shift, communicated in a call with ICE officials, contradicts an earlier directive reportedly aimed at easing pressure on key industries like agriculture and hospitality. Despite President Trump's stated focus on deporting serious criminals, many individuals without criminal records have been affected by the broader enforcement efforts. Aside from obviously how horrible and disgusting and evil this is, put that aside for a second. Like, this makes him look so weak. Like, I don't understand just like the constant flip-flopping and being like, oh, well, I'm gonna bend to the will of all these billionaires or like the people in the industries that this affects, and then getting made fun of for doing that by being like, oh my gosh, like taco, whatever, and then being like, no, actually, I'm gonna go back and we're gonna do it again. Like, obviously this is disgusting, and as David mentioned yesterday, it's like treating people like economic props, much like the United States did during the Civil War. But like, that aside, as far as Trump goes and like the way that this makes him look, I don't think this is a good look for him, even with like the most evil of his supporters who don't care about these people individually. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, it's just embarrassing.
Yeah.
Like you said, for the administration, he's flip flopped on this like 3 times in a week.
Yeah.
And it's also, I imagine, it must be frustrating for law enforcement and even ICE, because they're like, okay, well, we're not doing that anymore, so let's shift focus. And then less than a week later, it's like, okay, never mind, go back to doing that.
I'm sure no one takes him seriously in law enforcement because it's like, oh, are we actually going to do these raids? Because like it might be a complete waste of time. So maybe let's just wait for him to change his mind again.
Right? Yeah. It's just embarrassing. The previous guidance pausing raids at farms, hotels, and restaurants was the right move. They should be pausing more of them, but it was a step in the right direction. So just we had a brief little ray of light that has been snuffed out already. So disappointing, but who knows? They might just reverse course again.
Yes.
It's impossible
Let's
to
not
say.
hold our breath.
No, I'm not holding my breath for anything. I will just react as it happens. Well, a little bit different of a story. A new report from the Reuters Institute finds that social media and video platforms have overtaken TV and news websites as the primary source of news in the US, with 54% of people getting news from networks like Facebook, X, and YouTube. The rise of personality-driven content, such as that from Joe Rogan, reflects a broader global trend where politicians and influencers bypass traditional journalism, often spreading misinformation. Despite their reach, nearly half of global respondents view online personalities as major sources of false or misleading information, on par with politicians. While platforms like TikTok and AI chatbots are growing in popularity for news, trust remains higher in established traditional news brands. Interesting findings. I mean, I don't think it's any surprise that Facebook, X, YouTube, TikTok have taken over. I do think it's interesting though that last part where even though they're more popular, people still trust the traditional news brands of more. So I think that's pretty interesting. It's kind of, I mean, I'm sure it's not the same people, but there is at least some people who are admitting that, like, yeah, I'm using these, but they're not necessarily reliable, which I think is fascinating. I myself use YouTube a lot. I follow a lot of YouTube political creators that I trust. So, I am certainly I'm in the camp of people that use YouTube for news, but I try to blend it with traditional news sources that we use for shows like this. So fear not, you're not getting all your news from YouTube people, but it is interesting that this has happened. It's not surprising. We kind of knew this, but it is at least a little bit hopeful that people still are viewing these sources with some skepticism. And I think the thing that's important to remember about these Facebook, X, and YouTube is there's a wide range of quality. So just because 54% of people are getting it from those places doesn't mean they're all getting it from garbage sources. There are some good creators on these platforms that are doing their best to give quality sources and quality news. But I would definitely say that the Joe Rogan type voices, the misinformation probably remains a bit higher. So not a great trend, but not surprising either. Well, that's all we've got today. Sorry, no David today. He's busy on assignment, so he'll be back tomorrow, probably. But until then, we've got more across the network coming out today, and we'll be right back here tomorrow with a DSR Daily. So until we see you again, bye-bye.